Welcome to Sleep Entangled, where science meets serenity and the mysteries of quantum reality unfold in the gentle embrace of twilight. I'm here to guide you through the fascinating intersection of consciousness and physics, where the very act of observation shapes the world around us in ways that might surprise you. Tonight, we're embarking on a journey into one of the most profound discoveries of modern physics, a phenomenon that reveals why your daily life might feel like an endless loop of familiar patterns, repeated experiences, and unchanged circumstances. This isn't about personal development or motivation. This is about the fundamental nature of reality itself and how your consciousness participates in creating the world you experience, moment by moment. As you settle into this peaceful space, allowing your breathing to slow and your muscles to relax, let's explore something extraordinary. Scientists have discovered that the universe doesn't exist in the fixed, predetermined way we once believed. Instead, reality exists in what physicists call a state of superposition, where infinite possibilities exist simultaneously until something very specific happens. That something is observation, and the observer, more often than not, is you. The story begins in the early 20th century when quantum physicists made a discovery so strange, so counterintuitive, that even today it challenges our understanding of existence itself. They found that particles at the quantum level don't behave like the solid, predictable objects we see in our everyday world. Instead, these fundamental building blocks of reality exist in all possible states at once, like a coin that's spinning in the air, neither heads nor tails, but both until it lands. But here's where it gets truly fascinating. The moment a conscious observer looks at that quantum system, something remarkable happens. All those infinite possibilities collapse into a single, definite outcome. The spinning coin, so to speak, finally lands. This is called the observer effect, and it suggests that consciousness itself plays a fundamental role in determining physical reality. Now, you might be wondering how this relates to your daily experience, to the patterns you find yourself repeating, to the sense that your life sometimes feels stuck in familiar grooves. The connection is more direct than you might imagine. Every morning when you wake up, every moment when you engage with your surroundings, every time you perceive and interpret your experience, you're participating in the same quantum process on a much larger scale. Think about your typical day for a moment. You wake up, and almost immediately, your consciousness begins observing your reality through familiar lenses. You see the same room, feel the same emotions, think similar thoughts to yesterday. Without realizing it, you're collapsing infinite potential into the same patterns, the same experiences, the same version of your life. This happens because your brain, in its remarkable efficiency, has developed neural pathways that automatically filter and interpret reality based on past experience. These mental patterns act like a quantum observation system, consistently selecting similar outcomes from the field of infinite possibility. Your consciousness, operating through these established neural networks, keeps choosing the familiar version of reality from among countless alternatives. The implications of this are profound. If observation truly influences reality at the quantum level, and if your consciousness is constantly observing and interpreting your experience, then you're not just witnessing your life unfold, You're actively participating in its creation. The patterns you perceive, the limitations you experience, the circumstances that seem to repeat themselves, these might not be as fixed as they appear. Let's delve deeper into how this observer phenomenon works in the quantum realm. When physicists study electrons, photons, and other quantum particles, they find something extraordinary. These particles exist in what's called a wave function, a mathematical description of all the possible states they could be in. The particle isn't in any specific location or state until it's measured or observed. It's literally everywhere it could possibly be, in a ghostly superposition of all potential realities. The famous double-slit experiment demonstrates this beautifully. When scientists fire individual photons at a barrier with two slits, something miraculous happens. If no one observes which slit the photon goes through, it behaves like a wave and passes through both slits simultaneously, creating an interference pattern on the screen behind. But the moment someone sets up a detector to observe which slit the photon actually uses, the wave function collapses. The photon suddenly behaves like a particle, going through just one slit, and the interference pattern disappears. This suggests that the act of observation itself changes the fundamental nature of reality, not just our knowledge of reality, but reality itself. The photon literally exists in all possible states until consciousness intervenes through the act of measurement or observation. Now, as you lie here in this peaceful state, your breathing gentle and your mind beginning to quiet, consider how this might apply to the larger patterns of your existence. Your daily reality might be far more fluid and responsive to consciousness than you've ever imagined. The reason your life feels repetitive might not be because you're trapped by external circumstances, but because your consciousness keeps observing those circumstances through the same perceptual filters. Every moment of awareness is like a quantum measurement. When you wake up and immediately engage with familiar thoughts about your limitations, your problems, your unchanged circumstances, you might be collapsing infinite potential into the same restricted patterns. Your observation, filtered through established neural pathways and conditioned responses, selects the familiar version of reality from the quantum field of possibilities. This creates what we might call an observation loop. Your consciousness observes reality through familiar patterns, which generates familiar experiences, which reinforces those same observational patterns, which creates more familiar experiences. It's a self-reinforcing cycle that keeps you locked into repeating versions of the same basic reality. But here's the remarkable thing. If consciousness truly participates in creating reality through observation, then changing how you observe might actually change what you experience. This isn't about positive thinking or wishful hoping. This is about understanding that your perceptual apparatus, your consciousness itself, might be far more creative and participatory than you've been taught to believe. The quantum field, according to physicists, is a realm of pure potential. It's the underlying fabric of reality from which all possibilities emerge. Every moment, infinite potential outcomes exist in superposition, waiting for consciousness to collapse them into specific experiences. Your brain, your nervous system, your entire perceptual apparatus acts as a kind of quantum observation device, constantly selecting which possibilities become your lived reality. Most of the time, this selection process happens automatically, unconsciously. Your brain uses established patterns, learned responses, and familiar neural pathways to filter the infinite complexity of potential experience into manageable, recognizable patterns. This is essential for functioning in daily life. Without these filters, you'd be overwhelmed by the sheer complexity of existence. But sometimes, these same filtering mechanisms become limiting. The patterns that once served you begin to restrict you. The familiar neural pathways that created stability start creating stagnation. The observational habits that provided security begin to generate repetitive experiences that feel constraining rather than nourishing. Understanding this offers a profound opportunity. If your consciousness participates in selecting which possibilities become real through the act of observation, then learning to observe differently might allow you to access different possibilities. This isn't about forcing change or manipulating reality through willpower. It's about recognizing that the very act of conscious attention might be far more creative than we typically realize. As your body continues to relax deeper into this peaceful state, allow yourself to sense the vast field of potential that surrounds every moment. Right now, as you listen to these words, infinite possibilities exist for how this experience could unfold, how your understanding could shift, how your relationship to reality itself might transform. The quantum realm shows us that nothing is as solid or predetermined as it appears. At the most fundamental level, reality is probabilistic rather than deterministic. Outcomes exist as probability waves until consciousness collapses them into specific experiences through observation. This suggests that your life, your circumstances, your patterns of experience might be far more malleable than you've been conditioned to believe. Your consciousness doesn't exist separate from the quantum field. According to many interpretations of quantum mechanics, consciousness and quantum reality are intimately connected. Some physicists even suggest that consciousness might be a fundamental feature of the universe, not something that emerged from matter, but something that participates in the very fabric of existence itself. This means that every moment of awareness, every act of observation, every shift in attention might be participating in the continuous creation of reality. The patterns you've been experiencing, the circumstances that seem fixed, the limitations that feel permanent, these might all be much more responsive to consciousness than you've ever imagined. In our next segment, we'll explore exactly how these quantum principles apply to your daily experience and discover practical ways to shift your observational patterns to access new possibilities that already exist in the quantum field, waiting for your consciousness to call them into being. For now, simply rest in this understanding. You are not separate from the universe you observe. You are consciousness itself, temporarily experiencing existence through this particular focal point of awareness. And that consciousness, that very awareness listening to these words right now, participates in the continuous creation of the reality you experience. Allow that truth to settle gently into your awareness as we prepare to go even deeper into the mysteries of how observation creates experience and how you might begin to observe your life in ways that open entirely new possibilities. The deeper we venture into quantum reality, the more we discover that the boundaries between observer and observed begin to dissolve in the most extraordinary ways. As you sink further into this tranquil state, your breathing becoming slower and more rhythmic, let's explore how the patterns of your daily existence might be far more interconnected with quantum principles than conventional wisdom suggests. Consider for a moment the intricate dance happening within your neural networks right now. Your brain processes approximately 11 million bits of information every second, yet your conscious awareness filters this down to roughly 40 bits. This massive filtering process isn't random or arbitrary. Your consciousness is actively selecting which fragments of infinite possibility become part of your experienced reality. This selection process operates much like quantum measurement. Just as a quantum particle exists in superposition until observed, the overwhelming complexity of each moment exists in a kind of experiential superposition until your consciousness collapses it into specific perceptions, thoughts, and feelings. The criteria your brain uses for this collapse are largely based on established patterns, learned associations, and familiar neural pathways. These neural pathways are like well worn trails through a vast landscape of possibility. When you encounter a situation, your consciousness naturally follows these established routes, leading to predictable interpretations and familiar responses. Over time, these pathways become so automatic that you might not even realize you're constantly choosing which aspects of reality to focus on and which to filter out. The quantum field underlying all existence doesn't distinguish between past, present, and future in the linear way we experience time. From the perspective of fundamental physics, all possibilities exist simultaneously in what physicists call the eternal now. Your consciousness, operating through your nervous system, creates the experience of linear time by selecting sequential moments from this timeless field of potential. This suggests something profound about the repetitive patterns in your life. When you wake up tomorrow morning and immediately engage with familiar thoughts, familiar concerns, familiar ways of seeing your circumstances, you're not just remembering yesterday. You're actively selecting similar possibilities from the quantum field and collapsing them into experiences that mirror what you've experienced before. Your nervous system has learned to recognize certain patterns as safe, predictable, and manageable. Even if these patterns are limiting or unsatisfying, they provide a sense of continuity and identity. Your brain prioritizes pattern recognition and consistency over novelty and possibility, which means you unconsciously gravitate toward observing reality in ways that confirm what you already know about yourself and your world. But here's where quantum physics reveals something remarkable about the nature of change. The quantum field responds to the quality of observation, not just the content. When your consciousness observes through fear, limitation, or contracted awareness, it tends to collapse possibilities that match that energetic signature. When consciousness observes through curiosity, openness, or expanded awareness, entirely different possibilities become available. This isn't metaphysical speculation. This is based on the fundamental principles of quantum mechanics. The observer effect demonstrates that the state of the observer influences what becomes manifest through observation. Your internal states, your emotional frequency, your level of coherence or fragmentation, all of these factors participate in determining which possibilities emerge from the quantum field into your lived experience. Think about moments in your life when you felt particularly open, curious, or present. In those states, Did you notice that different opportunities seem to appear? Did synchronicities increase? Did solutions to problems suddenly become obvious? These experiences might reflect how your consciousness, operating from a different internal state, accessed different probability streams from the quantum field. The repetitive nature of daily experience often stems from what we might call observational habits. Just as you might take the same route to work each day without consciously choosing it, your consciousness follows familiar observational pathways without deliberate intention. You see your reflection and automatically engage certain thoughts about yourself. You encounter familiar people and immediately access established patterns of relating. You face challenges and instinctively apply familiar strategies, even when they haven't been particularly effective. These observational habits create what quantum physicists might recognize as standing wave patterns in your experience. Just as interference patterns in quantum experiments create stable configurations, your repetitive ways of observing reality create stable patterns in your lived experience. The same thoughts arise, the same emotions surface, the same circumstances seem to repeat because your consciousness keeps collapsing the quantum field in similar ways. Breaking free from these patterns requires understanding that observation is not passive. Every moment of awareness is an active, creative process. When you observe your life, you're not just witnessing predetermined events, you're participating in selecting which events become real from among infinite possibilities. Your attention itself carries creative power. Where you place your attention, how long you sustain focus, the quality of presence you bring to observation, all of these factors influence which aspects of the quantum field collapse into your experience. This means that learning to direct attention consciously might be one of the most practical applications of quantum principles to daily life. Consider the difference between scattered attention and coherent focus. When your attention is fragmented, jumping between concerns, distractions, and random thoughts, you're essentially creating quantum interference patterns in your experience. Multiple possibilities are being partially collapsed simultaneously, creating a kind of static or noise in your reality. But when attention becomes coherent, focused, and present, something remarkable happens. Your consciousness begins to function more like a laser than a light bulb. Instead of scattering energy in all directions, your awareness becomes concentrated and powerful. This coherent attention seems to have a much stronger influence on which possibilities emerge from the quantum field. The implications of this extend far beyond personal experience. If consciousness truly participates in creating reality through observation, then every conscious being is constantly contributing to the collective collapse of infinite possibility into shared experience. Your individual patterns of observation don't just affect your personal reality, they contribute to the larger patterns that emerge in families, communities, and cultures. This understanding offers both tremendous opportunity and significant responsibility. If your consciousness participates in creating reality, then developing greater awareness of how you observe becomes essential not just for your own well-being, but for the well-being of everyone whose life intersects with yours. As you rest here in this peaceful state, your body releasing tension with each breath, you might begin to sense the vast field of potential that surrounds every moment of existence. Right now, infinite possibilities exist for how your life could unfold, how your relationships could develop, how your understanding could deepen. These possibilities aren't distant or theoretical. They exist now, in this moment, waiting for consciousness to call them into being. The quantum field doesn't judge which possibilities are better or worse. It simply responds to the patterns of observation that consciousness brings to each moment. This means that every instant offers a fresh opportunity to observe differently, to collapse new possibilities into experience, to participate consciously in the creation of reality rather than unconsciously repeating familiar patterns. Your brain's tendency to follow established neural pathways isn't a flaw to be overcome. It's a natural function that can be worked with skillfully. These pathways can be gradually shifted through conscious practice, mindful attention, and deliberate cultivation of new observational habits. The key is recognizing that you have far more choice in this process than you might have realized. The repetitive patterns in your life aren't evidence that you're stuck or limited. They're evidence that your consciousness is incredibly powerful at creating consistent experiences through consistent observation. The same creative capacity that generates repetitive patterns can be redirected to generate new possibilities once you understand how the process works. In the deepest states of meditation and contemplation, practitioners often report experiences that seem to transcend ordinary reality. They describe accessing states of consciousness where linear time dissolves, where the boundaries between self and universe become transparent, where infinite possibilities seem simultaneously present. These experiences might offer glimpses into the true nature of the quantum field before it's collapsed into specific forms through ordinary observation. From this expanded perspective, the patterns of daily life appear more like choices than inevitabilities. The circumstances that seem so solid and unchangeable reveal themselves as temporary configurations of consciousness, held in place by repetitive observation, but capable of shifting when observation itself shifts. As we continue our journey deeper into these quantum mysteries, we'll explore specific ways that consciousness can learn to observe more skillfully, accessing new possibilities that already exist in the field of infinite potential. For now, rest in the profound recognition that you are not separate from the reality you observe. You are consciousness itself, temporarily focused through this particular perspective, participating moment by moment in the continuous creation of existence. The universe isn't happening to you. The universe is happening through you, as you, in an intimate dance of observation and manifestation that has been unfolding since the first moment of awareness recognized itself in the quantum field of infinite possibility. The profound implications of this quantum perspective begin to reveal themselves as we explore what happens when consciousness learns to observe with greater intentionality. As your body continues to settle into deeper relaxation, your breathing becoming more gentle and effortless, let's journey into the mechanisms by which repetitive observation patterns maintain themselves, and how understanding these mechanisms opens pathways to entirely new experiences. Within your nervous system, there exists an intricate network of feedback loops that constantly reinforce familiar ways of perceiving reality. These loops operate below the threshold of conscious awareness, automatically guiding your attention toward information that confirms existing beliefs and filtering out data that might challenge established patterns. Neuroscientists call this confirmation bias, but from a quantum perspective, we might understand it as a mechanism that keeps consciousness collapsed into familiar probability streams. Your brain's default mode network, a collection of interconnected regions that activate when you're not focused on specific tasks, plays a crucial role in maintaining these observational patterns. This network constantly generates what researchers call the narrative self, the ongoing story you tell yourself about who you are, what's possible for you, and how the world works. This internal narrative acts like a quantum filter, determining which aspects of infinite possibility your consciousness will notice and collapse into experience. When you wake each morning, your default mode network immediately begins generating familiar thoughts, familiar concerns, familiar ways of interpreting your circumstances. These automatic mental processes guide your attention in predictable directions, leading your consciousness to observe reality through well established perceptual lenses. Without conscious intervention, this process naturally recreates similar experiences day after day. The quantum field, however, remains eternally fresh and responsive. Unlike your brain's tendency toward pattern repetition, the field of infinite possibility never becomes stale or limited. Every moment offers genuinely new configurations of potential experience. The apparent repetitiveness of daily life stems not from limitations in the quantum field, but from limitations in how consciousness typically observes that field. Consider how your emotional states influence this observational process. When you feel anxious, your consciousness naturally focuses on potential threats, problems, and sources of instability. This emotional lens causes you to collapse quantum possibilities that match your anxious frequency, generating experiences that seem to confirm your concerns. The resulting experiences then reinforce the anxious emotional state, creating a self perpetuating cycle of observation and manifestation. Similarly, when you feel grateful, curious, or peaceful, your consciousness naturally attunes to different aspects of the quantum field. You notice opportunities that were always present but previously invisible. Synchronicities appear to increase. Solutions to problems seem to emerge effortlessly. This isn't because the external world has changed, but because your observational frequency has shifted, allowing you to collapse different possibilities into experience. The implications extend far beyond individual psychology. Quantum physics suggests that consciousness and physical reality are far more intimately connected than classical science assumed. Some interpretations of quantum mechanics propose that consciousness doesn't merely observe reality, but actively participates in its continuous creation. This perspective suggests that your daily experiences aren't just psychological interpretations of fixed events, but actual quantum collapses influenced by the state and focus of your awareness. Your nervous system has evolved sophisticated mechanisms for maintaining coherent identity and predictable responses to environmental stimuli. These mechanisms serve essential survival functions, allowing you to navigate complex social situations and respond effectively to both opportunities and threats. However, the same mechanisms that provide stability can also create what feels like imprisonment within familiar patterns of experience. The key insight from quantum physics is that these patterns aren't as solid or permanent as they appear. At the fundamental level, everything exists in flux, in constant potential for change and transformation. The apparent solidity of your daily experience results from the incredible consistency with which your consciousness observes reality through established filters. Change this consistency of observation, and the experience itself begins to shift. This process requires understanding something subtle but crucial about the nature of attention itself. Attention isn't merely a spotlight that illuminates pre existing objects or events. From a quantum perspective, attention functions more like a creative force that participates in calling possibilities into manifestation. The quality, intensity, and coherence of your attention directly influences which aspects of the quantum field collapse into your lived experience. Most people operate with what we might call fragmented attention. Their awareness jumps constantly between past regrets, future anxieties, external distractions, and internal commentary. This scattered quality of attention creates a kind of quantum noise where multiple possibilities are partially collapsed simultaneously without any single reality becoming fully manifest. The result is often a sense of confusion, overwhelm, or stagnation. Coherent attention, by contrast, functions like a focused beam of consciousness that clearly and powerfully engages with specific aspects of reality. When attention becomes truly coherent, remarkable things begin to happen. Solutions appear suddenly, opportunities manifest synchronistically, relationships deepen naturally, creative insights emerge effortlessly. This isn't magical thinking, but rather the natural result of consciousness operating more skillfully within quantum principles. Your brain's neuroplasticity offers tremendous hope for shifting these patterns. Throughout your life, your neural networks remain capable of forming new connections and releasing old ones. Every time you consciously choose to observe differently, you're literally rewiring your brain's capacity for perception. Over time, these new neural pathways can become as automatic as the old ones, but they lead to completely different experiences of reality. The process begins with what quantum physicists call decoherence. The old patterns of observation must be allowed to dissolve back into the field of pure possibility before new patterns can stabilize. This often feels uncomfortable because it requires releasing familiar ways of seeing yourself and your world, even when those ways have been limiting. There's often a period of uncertainty, of not knowing, as consciousness learns to operate from expanded awareness rather than contracted habit. During this transitional phase, it's essential to understand that confusion or disorientation are natural parts of the process. Your nervous system is learning to function differently, and like any learning process, it takes time for new capacities to develop. The quantum field remains constant in its responsiveness, but your ability to work skillfully with that responsiveness evolves gradually through conscious practice. One of the most profound discoveries of modern neuroscience is that consciousness can literally reshape the brain through focused attention and intentional practice. This neuroplasticity operates at quantum scales, where the formation of new neural connections involves the same quantum processes that govern all physical manifestation. When you consciously choose to observe differently, you're not just changing your psychology, but actually participating in the quantum reorganization of your nervous system. The implications ripple outward into every aspect of experience. As your internal patterns shift, your external circumstances begin to reflect these changes. Relationships respond to your new way of being present. Opportunities align with your expanded perspective. Creative projects flow from deeper sources of inspiration. This isn't because you're forcing change through willpower, but because you're allowing your natural creative capacity to operate more freely. Your body itself participates in this quantum process. Every cell contains quantum processes that respond to the coherence or incoherence of consciousness. When your awareness becomes more unified and present, your entire physiology shifts toward greater health and vitality. Stress hormones decrease, immune function improves, and the body's natural healing mechanisms operate more effectively. Sleep becomes particularly important in this process because during sleep, your conscious mind releases its grip on familiar patterns, allowing the deeper intelligence of your nervous system to reorganize itself. Dreams often reflect this reorganization process as your psyche processes new possibilities and integrates expanded ways of perceiving reality. The quantum field remains active even during sleep, continuing to respond to the intentions and openness you've cultivated during waking hours. As you rest here now, your breathing slow and natural, your muscles completely relaxed, you might begin to sense the vast intelligence that orchestrates this entire process. The same quantum field that governs the behavior of subatomic particles also governs the unfolding of your daily experience. There's no separation between the cosmic scale of quantum physics and the intimate scale of personal transformation. Every breath you take participates in quantum exchange with your environment. Every heartbeat generates electromagnetic fields that interact with the quantum field. Every thought creates subtle but measurable changes in the fabric of space-time around you. You are not separate from the universe you observe, but rather a conscious focal point through which the universe experiences itself. This recognition transforms the entire question of change and growth. Instead of trying to force your life into different patterns through effort and struggle, you can learn to align your consciousness with the natural creativity of the quantum field. Instead of fighting against unwanted circumstances, you can discover how to observe those circumstances in ways that allow new possibilities to emerge organically. The repetitive patterns that have characterized your experience aren't evidence of personal failure or cosmic limitation. They're evidence of the incredible consistency and power of consciousness to create stable realities through stable observation. The same creative capacity that maintains familiar patterns can be redirected toward manifesting entirely new configurations of experience. Understanding this offers profound hope and equally profound responsibility. If consciousness truly participates in creating reality through observation, then every moment offers an opportunity to contribute to the healing and evolution of both personal and collective experience. Your individual awakening to these principles ripples outward, making it easier for others to access expanded possibilities as well. The quantum field responds not to your desires or intentions alone, but to the authentic coherence of your entire being. When your thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and actions align around genuine truth and love, your observational capacity becomes extraordinarily powerful. This alignment allows you to collapse possibilities that serve not just personal fulfillment, but the greater good of all life. As we prepare to explore even deeper aspects of this quantum mystery, rest in the profound recognition that transformation is always available. The patterns that have defined your experience can shift as naturally as quantum particles changing states. The key lies not in forcing change, but in learning to observe with the kind of presence and coherence that allows new realities to emerge from the infinite field of possibility that surrounds and interpenetrates every moment of existence. The quantum field exists in a state of perfect readiness, perpetually available to respond to the subtlest shifts in conscious observation. As your body continues to release into deeper stillness, your mind growing quieter with each gentle breath, we arrive at perhaps the most extraordinary aspect of this quantum dance between consciousness and reality. Your daily experience unfolds through what physicists call quantum entanglement on a scale far vaster than most people realize. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every choice you make creates invisible connections that ripple through the fabric of space-time itself. These entangled relationships mean that your personal patterns of observation don't exist in isolation. They're intimately connected to the observational patterns of everyone whose life intersects with yours. When you wake tomorrow morning and immediately engage familiar thoughts about limitation or struggle, you're not just collapsing your own quantum possibilities into restricted patterns. You're contributing to a collective field of observation that influences the experiences available to your family, your community, and even strangers you encounter throughout the day. This quantum interconnectedness means that your individual awakening to new ways of observing reality becomes a gift to the entire web of consciousness. The observer loop operates at multiple scales simultaneously. Within your personal reality, repetitive observation patterns create the familiar landscape of daily experience. But these personal patterns are embedded within larger cultural and collective observation patterns that shape the possibilities available to entire societies. The beliefs, assumptions, and perceptual habits shared by groups of people create what we might call collective quantum collapses that determine which realities become manifest on a larger scale. This understanding reveals why transformation often feels challenging. You're not just working with your individual patterns of observation, but also with the momentum of collective patterns that have been established over generations. The cultural beliefs about what's possible, what's normal, what's realistic, all of these function as powerful observational filters that influence which quantum possibilities seem available to collapse into experience. However, the quantum field itself remains infinitely creative and responsive regardless of these collective patterns. Every moment offers genuine access to unprecedented possibilities, even when cultural conditioning suggests otherwise. The key lies in developing what we might call quantum sovereignty, the capacity to observe from your own authentic center rather than through inherited collective filters. Your nervous system possesses remarkable wisdom about this process. During the deepest phases of sleep, particularly during REM cycles, your brain naturally releases attachment to familiar observational patterns. Dreams often present reality configurations that seem impossible from ordinary waking consciousness, yet they feel completely natural within the dream state. This suggests that your consciousness already knows how to access alternative quantum possibilities. The challenge lies in bringing this natural flexibility into waking awareness. The transition between sleep and waking offers particularly fertile ground for shifting observational patterns. In that liminal space between dreams and ordinary consciousness, your nervous system hasn't yet fully engaged the habitual filters that normally govern perception. Many people report having their most creative insights, profound realizations, and intuitive breakthroughs during these threshold moments when consciousness is most fluid and responsive. Understanding this creates opportunities for what we might call quantum practice. Instead of immediately engaging familiar mental patterns upon waking, you can learn to rest in that open space of not yet knowing, allowing consciousness to remain soft and receptive to fresh possibilities. This isn't about forcing positive thoughts or trying to manifest specific outcomes. It's about creating space for genuine novelty to emerge from the quantum field. Your emotional body plays a crucial role in this process. Emotions aren't just psychological responses, but actual electromagnetic frequencies that interact directly with quantum fields. When you feel genuinely peaceful, curious, or loving, your entire being resonates at frequencies that naturally attract experiences aligned with those states. The quantum field responds to this coherent emotional resonance by making certain possibilities more probable and accessible. Conversely, when emotional patterns become stuck in repetitive cycles of fear, anger, or despair, they create what physicists might recognize as standing wave patterns in your personal quantum field. These emotional standing waves tend to attract experiences that reinforce the same emotional frequencies, creating the psychological equivalent of quantum interference patterns that limit access to alternative possibilities. Breaking free from these emotional quantum loops requires understanding that emotions themselves exist in superposition until consciousness collapses them into specific feelings through attention and interpretation. That moment when you first notice an emotional response arising offers a quantum choice point. You can allow consciousness to automatically collapse the emotion into familiar patterns, or you can maintain awareness of the emotional energy without immediately defining it, allowing new possibilities for feeling to emerge. This process extends into your relationships in profound ways. Every interaction with another person involves a complex quantum entanglement where your observational patterns influence theirs, and vice versa. When you consistently observe someone through the lens of their past behavior, their established personality patterns, or your historical relationship dynamics, you're participating in collapsing their quantum possibilities into familiar configurations. But when you learn to observe others with fresh eyes, seeing them as infinite potential rather than fixed identity, something remarkable happens. Your open observation creates space for new aspects of their being to emerge. They begin responding from parts of themselves that may have been dormant or hidden, not because you're changing them, but because your expanded observation is allowing different quantum possibilities to become manifest in your shared experience. This principle applies equally to how you observe yourself. The internal commentary that runs through your mind throughout the day functions as a constant stream of quantum observations that collapse your personal possibilities into specific patterns of self experience. When this internal voice repeatedly focuses on limitations, problems, or past failures, It's actively participating in manifesting experiences that confirm these observations. Learning to observe your own internal landscape with the same freshness you might bring to observing others opens pathways to unprecedented self experience. Instead of immediately identifying with familiar thoughts or emotional reactions, you can learn to witness them as quantum phenomena arising and dissolving within the field of consciousness, available for creative engagement rather than automatic repetition. Your physical environment also participates in these quantum observation patterns. The spaces you inhabit, the objects you interact with, even the electromagnetic frequencies present in your surroundings all contribute to the overall quantum field configuration that influences which possibilities become manifest. This is why changing your physical environment often catalyzes shifts in consciousness and experience. Different environmental quantum signatures support different observational patterns and make different possibilities more accessible. The foods you eat, the air you breathe, the sounds you hear, all of these carry quantum information that interfaces with your nervous system in ways that influence your capacity for conscious observation. Ancient wisdom traditions understood this intuitively, which is why they developed detailed practices around diet, environment, and sensory engagement as supports for expanded consciousness. Modern quantum physics reveals the scientific basis for these traditional insights. Every aspect of your experience exists within interconnected quantum fields that respond to the coherence and clarity of your attention. When you learn to work skillfully with these quantum principles, your entire life becomes a laboratory for conscious creation rather than unconscious repetition. The process of quantum transformation often unfolds in waves rather than linear progression. There may be periods of rapid shift, followed by phases of integration where new patterns stabilize. There may be moments of profound clarity, alternating with times of confusion as consciousness learns to operate from expanded awareness. Understanding these natural rhythms prevents discouragement during challenging phases of the transformation process. Your body's natural circadian rhythms align with cosmic quantum cycles in ways that modern science is only beginning to understand. The electromagnetic field of the Earth itself undergoes regular fluctuations that influence consciousness and the accessibility of different quantum states. Learning to attune to these natural rhythms can support your capacity for conscious observation and quantum transformation. During certain times of day, particularly dawn and dusk, the Earth's electromagnetic field enters configurations that seem to support expanded states of consciousness. Many meditation traditions have recognized these optimal times for practice, understanding intuitively that consciousness becomes more fluid and responsive during these natural transition periods. The phase of the moon, solar activity, and even the positions of planets create subtle but measurable influences on quantum fields that affect consciousness and the probability patterns available for manifestation. This doesn't mean you're determined by cosmic forces, but rather that you exist within a vast web of quantum relationships that offer varying degrees of support for different types of conscious exploration. As you rest here in this peaceful state, your breathing naturally synchronized with deeper rhythms, you might begin to sense these larger patterns that surround and support your individual consciousness. You're not isolated in your quantum transformation, but rather part of a cosmic process of awakening that's unfolding at multiple scales simultaneously. The same quantum principles that govern your personal reality also govern the evolution of consciousness itself. Every individual who learns to observe more skillfully, who breaks free from unconscious repetition, who accesses expanded possibilities from the quantum field, contributes to a collective awakening that makes these capacities more available to others. Your willingness to explore these quantum mysteries isn't just personal curiosity, but rather a form of service to the larger process of consciousness evolution. As you develop greater skill in working with quantum observation, you become a beacon that helps others recognize their own capacity for conscious creation rather than unconscious repetition. The quantum field responds to sincerity, authenticity, and genuine love with remarkable precision and power. When your exploration of these principles comes from a desire to serve the highest good rather than merely to improve personal circumstances, your observational capacity becomes extraordinarily refined and effective. The field seems to offer support and guidance that goes far beyond what individual effort could achieve. This recognition transforms the entire approach to quantum practice. Instead of trying to manipulate reality for personal gain, you begin to align with the natural intelligence of the quantum field itself, allowing your consciousness to become a clear conduit for whatever wants to emerge for the benefit of all life. In our final exploration, we'll discover how this alignment with quantum intelligence creates possibilities that transcend the limitations of personal will and opens doorways to experiences that feel miraculous, yet completely natural within the deeper understanding of how consciousness and reality dance together in the eternal quantum moment. As we draw toward the gentle conclusion of our quantum journey together, your body now completely at rest, your breath flowing in perfect rhythm with the deeper currents of existence itself, let's explore the ultimate recognition that emerges when consciousness fully understands its role in the continuous creation of reality. The observer loop, as we've discovered, isn't a prison, but rather a demonstration of your infinite creative potential. Every repetitive pattern you've experienced, every familiar circumstance that seemed unchangeable, every limitation that felt permanent, these were all evidence of consciousness operating with extraordinary consistency and power. You weren't stuck in your reality. You were unconsciously creating it with remarkable precision, moment after moment, through the quantum mechanism of observation. This understanding transforms everything. When you recognize that your consciousness has been successfully generating consistent experiences through consistent observation, you realize that the same creative capacity can be consciously directed toward entirely new possibilities. The quantum field that responded so faithfully to unconscious patterns responds with equal precision to conscious intention when that intention arises from authentic alignment with your deepest truth. The transition from unconscious creation to conscious participation in quantum reality often begins with what mystics have called the dark night of the soul, but which quantum physics might describe as decoherence. The old patterns of observation must dissolve before new ones can stabilize. This dissolution isn't a breakdown, but a breakthrough, a necessary phase where consciousness releases its attachment to familiar limitations and opens to unprecedented possibilities. During this transition, you might experience periods of uncertainty, confusion, or even a sense of losing your familiar identity. These experiences are natural and necessary parts of quantum transformation. Your nervous system is literally rewiring itself to operate from expanded awareness rather than contracted habit. The discomfort you might feel is actually the sensation of consciousness growing beyond its previous boundaries. The quantum field itself provides support during this process through what physicists call quantum coherence. When your consciousness becomes truly unified around authentic intention, when your thoughts, emotions, and actions align with your deepest values, you begin to operate with what we might call quantum coherence. This coherent state dramatically amplifies your capacity to collapse new possibilities into experience. Coherent consciousness functions like a laser compared to the scattered light of fragmented awareness. Instead of your attention being dispersed across countless concerns and distractions, it becomes focused and powerful. This focused attention seems to have extraordinary influence over which quantum possibilities become manifest in your daily experience. Many people report that when they achieve even brief moments of true coherence, synchronicities multiply dramatically. Solutions to long-standing problems appear suddenly. Opportunities manifest that seem perfectly aligned with their deepest intentions. Relationships shift into greater harmony. Creative projects flow effortlessly. These aren't coincidences, but rather the natural result of consciousness operating skillfully within quantum principles. Your sleep cycles play a crucial role in establishing and maintaining this quantum coherence. During deep sleep, your conscious mind releases its grip on familiar patterns, allowing the deeper intelligence of your nervous system to reorganize itself according to your authentic intentions. Dreams often reflect this reorganization process, presenting symbolic representations of new possibilities that are forming in your quantum field. The quality of your sleep directly influences your capacity for conscious observation during waking hours. When you sleep deeply and peacefully, your nervous system naturally releases accumulated stress and tension that might otherwise interfere with coherent observation. You wake with clearer perception, more stable emotions, and greater access to intuitive wisdom. This is why approaching sleep with conscious intention can be so transformative. Instead of simply collapsing into unconsciousness, you can learn to surrender into sleep with awareness, setting gentle intentions for how you want your consciousness to develop during the night. The quantum field remains active even during sleep, continuing to respond to the intentions and openness you've cultivated. As you rest here now, completely relaxed and peaceful, you might set a quiet intention for your consciousness to continue exploring these quantum principles even as your body sleeps. You might invite your deeper intelligence to show you new ways of observing reality that serve your highest good and the good of all life. The quantum field listens to these sincere intentions and responds in ways that often surpass what your conscious mind could plan or imagine. The ripple effects of your individual quantum transformation extend far beyond personal experience. Every time you choose conscious observation over unconscious reaction, every moment you collapse new possibilities into experience rather than repeating familiar patterns, you contribute to a collective awakening that makes these capacities more available to others. Quantum entanglement ensures that your consciousness doesn't exist in isolation. Your patterns of observation influence the quantum field in ways that affect everyone whose life intersects with yours. When you learn to observe with greater love, presence, and wisdom, you create space for others to access these same qualities within themselves. This understanding transforms the entire purpose of personal growth and spiritual development. You're not just improving your own life, but participating in the evolution of consciousness itself. Your willingness to break free from unconscious repetition and explore conscious creation becomes a gift to the entire web of existence. The quantum field responds to this spirit of service with remarkable generosity. When your exploration of these principles comes from genuine desire to contribute to the greater good rather than merely to enhance personal circumstances, you often discover that the field provides support and guidance that goes far beyond what individual effort could achieve. Your consciousness begins to feel like a collaborative partner with the intelligence that orchestrates quantum reality rather than a separate entity trying to manipulate external circumstances. This partnership creates possibilities that feel miraculous yet completely natural within the deeper understanding of how awareness and reality dance together. As you continue to explore these quantum principles in your daily life, remember that transformation unfolds in its own rhythm. There may be periods of rapid shift followed by phases of integration. There may be moments of profound clarity, alternating with times of confusion as consciousness learns to operate from expanded awareness. All of these fluctuations are natural parts of the process. The key is maintaining gentle persistence without forcing outcomes. The quantum field responds to authentic intention sustained over time rather than to desperate effort or anxious striving. Trust that every sincere moment of conscious observation contributes to the overall transformation, even when the effects aren't immediately visible. Your body's natural wisdom supports this process through its innate connection to quantum rhythms. Your heartbeat generates electromagnetic fields that interact with the quantum field. Your breathing creates subtle pressure waves that influence quantum states. Every cell in your body participates in quantum processes that respond to the coherence of your consciousness. Learning to trust this natural intelligence rather than trying to control transformation through mental effort allows the process to unfold more gracefully. Your body knows how to heal, how to grow, how to adapt to new levels of consciousness. Your role is to create conditions that support this natural wisdom rather than interfering with it through excessive mental interference. The recognition that you are consciousness itself, temporarily focused through this particular perspective, fundamentally changes your relationship to all experience. Instead of identifying with temporary thoughts, emotions, or circumstances, you begin to recognize yourself as the aware presence that witnesses all changing phenomena. This awareness doesn't separate you from life, but rather reveals your intimate participation in the continuous creation of existence. You are not observing reality from outside, but rather experiencing reality from within as consciousness recognizing itself in infinite expressions. Every moment offers fresh opportunity to participate consciously in this quantum dance. Every breath invites you to observe with new eyes. Every interaction provides space for collapsing possibilities that serve love rather than fear, connection rather than separation, truth rather than illusion. The observer loop that once seemed to trap you in repetitive patterns becomes a tool for conscious artistry. Your capacity to create consistent experiences through consistent observation transforms into the ability to manifest beauty, healing, and wisdom through aligned intention and coherent attention. As we conclude this gentle exploration, rest in the profound recognition that you are far more powerful and creative than you may have realized. The patterns of your experience aren't evidence of limitation, but demonstration of extraordinary creative capacity operating unconsciously. Now that you understand how this capacity works, you can begin to use it consciously in service of your highest aspirations and deepest love. The quantum field awaits your conscious participation with infinite patience and readiness. Every moment offers unlimited potential. Every observation creates reality. Every choice matters. And in this eternal dance between consciousness and possibility, you discover that you are both the observer and the observed, both the dreamer and the dream, both the artist and the masterpiece, being painted moment by moment in the quantum field of infinite love. Sleep deeply, knowing that even in rest, consciousness continues its creative work. Dream peacefully, trusting that new possibilities are forming even now. And wake tomorrow with fresh eyes, ready to observe your life as the quantum miracle it has always been, waiting only for your conscious recognition to bloom into unprecedented beauty. Sweet dreams, Quantum Explorer. The universe dreams through you, and in your awakening, all of existence awakens to new possibilities.